Hi guys, welcome to Informer. Let's begin with the story. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered quietly to myself. I had just finished packing for a week-long business trip to Mequon, a small town in Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee, when I got a new email from Joseph. After 5 weeks of talking and planning our triple date with him and his wife Caroline, Joseph told me he couldn't make it. I had arranged to fly in on Saturday morning so we could meet that evening. Now I had to spend more time in Wisconsin than I wanted, especially in December. It was too late to cancel the hotel reservation, and my boss wouldn't approve a $150 fee to change my flight. Disappointed, I headed to the airport expecting a boring evening. Even though Wisconsin has a lot of beer, maybe I could find something interesting on a dating or fetish website. Most of these dates just ended with kissing, but I was hoping for more. It was through a fetish site that I had met Joseph and Caroline a few weeks ago, which gave me mixed feelings. Caroline's pictures were hot, and I was counting on a great evening together. When my boss informed me that my next job would be in Mequon, I decided to look for an interesting adventure again. It had been over a year since my last triple experience, and I wanted to do it again. I quickly found a couple who were looking for their first triple experience with a man. The correspondence was pleasant, and they seemed like a great couple. Both were glad I wasn't from around here, which eliminated awkward encounters in the future. They were in good shape, as you could tell from their photos of running, surfing, and vacationing at the beach. Both in their 30s, so you could count on interesting conversation over drinks before the event. No annoying request to send more nudes like the photo collectors do. We asked each other the usual questions. Joseph was glad to hear that I didn't have feelings for both men and women, and Caroline was happy that I was taller than her. They were both 180 centimeters tall and weighed 130 pounds, while I was 165 centimeters tall and weighed 65 pounds. She complimented me on my traditional masculinity, facial and chest hair, something Joseph didn't have. After weeks of flirting and talking about boundaries, we were all set to meet. But then, right at the last minute, Joseph cancelled everything. When I got to the airport, I started to feel a bit calmer as I went through security. No, Mr. Agent, I didn't forget to take off my watch. It's the screws in my wrist bone, like I tell you every week when I fly through here, I explained. I went to the gate and found an empty chair in the corner. I took out my phone and started looking at ads in the Milwaukee Personals group on FetLife. Only one caught my eye. I sent a message, not really expecting a reply because the ad was so popular. Just as the flight attendant was closing the door and starting the safety briefing, I was surprised to see a new email from Joseph. He apologized for the earlier message, saying he accidentally hit send before finishing it. Joseph explained that he and Caroline were excited to meet, but he wasn't sure he could go through with it in front of another man. He talked about his worries, unsure if he could perform, possible jealousy, and his fear of not seeing his wife the same way as before. Are you kidding me again? I thought to myself. Seeing this message a few minutes before takeoff, I had to put my phone into airplane mode and quickly text them back. Joseph, I just got on the plane. We've been discussing this for 5 weeks and you're just now starting to think about it. How about Caroline and I duct tape you to a chair so you don't have to watch? Fuck it, I thought, sending the message under the flight attendant's stern gaze. A few hours after arriving at my hotel, one of those nice ones with a kitchen and a private bedroom, I finally remembered to turn my phone off from airplane mode. I was surprised to see 3 messages from Joseph and Caroline. Caroline wrote, "We just had a long discussion about Joseph's problems and fears, and I think we can work through them. I'd like us all to get together for at least a drink tonight if that's okay with you, unless you have other plans." That was unexpected. This was followed by a text from Joseph. "I agree with Caroline. If we can handle the drinks and I get uncomfortable, you can strap me to a chair. I'll be able to hear Caroline, who I hope is enjoying herself, and I won't have to worry about wanting to attack you. I hope we can all play together." This guy is a godsend. Does he seriously want me to strap him to a chair while his wife and I make love and attack me? I made inquiries about these two, but not by their names, since neither of them had bothered to create an anonymous email address for our communication. Caroline worked as a nurse in a maternity hospital and Joseph worked in it consulting. There was nothing in their public Facebook profiles to indicate aggressiveness, much less physical force. Attack me. I would destroy Joseph in a fight. Another email from Caroline. "Please let me know. I really want this. I'm tired of one man. Joseph is so passive all the time. It's driving me out of my mind. I was really hoping this would make Joseph be more aggressive. I really want to be with you tonight, no matter what. I wasn't sure how the evening would go, but it seemed promising. I definitely didn't want to share Caroline tonight. After settling in at the hotel, I replied, "Rooster, 7 o'clock tonight." I had dinner early, went back to my room, showered, and changed my clothes. I put on some cologne, wore a shirt and sport coat, and left the hotel. It was just a short walk to the bar, and I got there at 6:30, right on time. The bar looked like an old establishment that had tried to be a hipster place, pretending to be a microbrewery, but had failed miserably. It was a real dive. Nothing on the cocktail menu was more expensive than $8. I love Wisconsin. Placing $200 bills in front of me and noticing only a few business travelers at the other end of the bar, the bartender quickly approached me. "Sounds like a good start to the evening. My name is Monica. What can I do for you?" she said with a satisfied look. "I'm meeting some friends here soon. I'm going to have 2 whiskeys, ideally Irish, at least 10 years old. Take whatever my friends want, but make sure the drink for the guy is very strong and the drink for the lady is very weak. Let me know if you need more," I replied, nodding at the $100. I hoped Joseph wasn't a beer drinker. Monica giggled and replied, "They'll cover you all night." And then, throwing me a perplexed look, added, "Usually guys try to get a girl drunk." I just smiled and replied, "She doesn't really like to drink. He likes to think he is, but in reality, 2 stiff drinks is enough to last all night." She picked up a bottle from the wall and poured me a 12-year-old Jameson in an apologetic tone. "It's the best we've got." "Oh dear, I forgot to ask if you needed ice." "Don't mind me, I'm all worked up. No one orders good whiskey on the rocks. If I didn't already have plans, I might have to start flirting with the very athletic Monica." At 7:15, I saw a car pull up and 2 people holding hands, headed toward the bar. "Friends of yours?" Monica asked, looking around the bar. I nodded affirmatively, turning around to meet Joseph and Caroline for the first time in real life. We emailed for a long time, discussing how we were going to pretend to be good friends. "Caroline, you look amazing as always." "Joseph, it's good to see you again. I can't believe it's been 2 years," I exclaimed, getting up to hug Caroline. After shaking Joseph's hand, I sat them down at the bar, with Caroline nestled between us. Despite the cool spring evening, she was wearing a classic little black dress, while Joseph was in a sweater and jeans. Monica hurried over to us and took our order of matching Long Island iced teas, casting a glance at me, which I discreetly confirmed with a nod. Caroline really did look amazing. While she would never be the classic American model, tall and thin, her body had all the right curves in all the right places. She was a refreshing contrast to the dangerously thin or artificially disproportionate women I often met. As we made small talk, Caroline mentioned that she sometimes felt lonely in Wisconsin, being half Korean. I reached up to move her hair away from her ear and gently touched her cheek. "You're making Wisconsin more fun. Being passive and boring isn't good," I said. It wasn't my best line, but touching her seemed to change something in Caroline. Her eyes widened, she looked at Joseph, then smiled at me. As we got our second round of drinks, I noticed Joseph wasn't as involved in the conversation. Caroline and I kept flirting, her hands staying on my arm longer than needed. I didn't mind. Eventually, our talk turned more sexual, and Joseph joined in, talking about how surprised he was when they first met because Caroline had only been with one other guy in high school. As our drinks were finishing, Monica came back and joked, "Oh my God, you're all going to have a threesome." Without wasting a second, I smirked and replied, "We were hoping you'd join the 4 of us." Seeing her blush, I quickly added, "No, we're not doing that." Looking a little more relaxed, she smiled and asked, "If you're done drinking, what do you have for tonight? I'll bring you your change." "We're going back to my hotel where I'll strap Joseph to a chair while I sleep with his wife." "Keep the change," I told Monica. She froze for a moment, eyes wide, then winked and smiled slyly before heading off to a few other customers on the other side of the bar. Soon Joseph and Caroline returned, with Joseph staggering slightly. Monica did a great job with their drinks, while Caroline's face expressed a mixture of nervousness and excitement. I couldn't tell anything from Joseph's face. It was strangely blank. I didn't know if they were ready to continue the evening together or if they'd rather go home. When they sat down next to me, I finished my whiskey and said, "Thank you for keeping me company. I'm going back to my room for the night." Holding out my hand to Caroline, I watch her face change. There it is, the invitation to return to my hotel. Slowly, she reaches out, taking her purse and intertwining her hand with mine. Without looking at Joseph, I escort Caroline out the door. Joseph quickly caught up with us as we walked down the sidewalk to my hotel. Surprisingly, he didn't say anything. I couldn't believe how passive this guy was, especially now that it was obvious I was going to sleep with his wife after an evening of flirting and ignoring him at the bar. I supposed he had to be feeling something. Excitement, anger, annoyance, something. I silently walk under Caroline's arm, enter the hotel lobby, get on the elevator, and head up to my room. Letting go of Caroline as she reaches for the bathroom, I look at Joseph. Joseph didn't look at me when he said, "I'll probably sit on the bed near you both, but I can't control anything else." I turned away from him and said, "No," then went to a bag by a chair. "Sit here," I told him, pointing to the chair. After hesitating, Joseph sat down. I took out duct tape and said, "You mentioned you might attack me. That's not okay." Joseph didn't react. I started taping his arms and legs to the chair. Caroline came out of the bathroom as I finished, leaving Joseph secure and unable to move. I suppose he could tip the chair over, but it wouldn't do him much good, and more importantly, it wouldn't affect me. Looking at Caroline as she takes in the scene, I can see that it's not what she envisioned. I see the hesitation, and then they disappear, replaced by acceptance and nervous excitement. I take Joseph to the corner of the bedroom. Looking back, Caroline still hasn't moved. I walk over to her, take her hand with my left, and place my right hand on her hip, pulling her closer to me, and press my cheek against her cheek. We barely touch, her breasts only lightly touching mine. Still feeling the tension from Caroline, I gently lower my lips to her neck, kissing the exposed part of her collarbone and up to her ear. I finish by gently nibbling on her earlobe. Although it didn't spare her any nerves, the bite aroused Caroline enough that she ran her hands down my back, up to my hair, and turned her head slightly. So much so that our lips met for the first time. Our tongues gently explored each other, first just touching and then pulling back. My right hand, slowly stroking Caroline's back, slid lower to her firm ass and pulled her closer to me. It was a spark that threw her off balance. "Caroline, are you okay?" Joseph interrupted our kiss, forcing us to stop. I threw him an annoyed look. Taking Caroline's hand, I confidently led her into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. Caroline no longer looked unsure or hesitant, readily pulling me to her to resume our kiss. Lying next to me, I felt her hand slide down my chest, feeling my abs and pectoral muscles. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Joseph again, interrupting our embrace. Caroline's hand pushed me decisively onto my back. "What does it feel like?" she replied, throwing her leg over me and climbing on top of me. "I can't believe I'm watching this," Joseph interrupted again. There was no anger or shock in his voice, but it was still annoying. Caroline looked disappointed and closed her eyes. I moved away from her, got out of bed, and went to Joseph, who was still in the chair. He looked scared at first, but then realized I was just annoyed, not angry. I rolled his chair back into the main room to the TV. "I'm tired of your distractions," I said, turning on the TV to ESPN. I considered leaving it on a kids' channel, but decided against it. I went back into the bedroom and found Caroline lying down, looking sultry. I noticed her dress strap was slipping off her shoulder, revealing more cleavage. Caroline moaned as I pressed against her again. After a few more minutes of kissing and caressing, Caroline began to undo the buttons on my shirt, letting her fingers slide through the hair on my chest. Once free of my shirt, I enjoyed the touch of her hands sliding over my chest and beard. "I like that. You don't shave your chest. It feels so manly," Caroline said before trying to pull my pants off. As anyone who's ever tried it knows, getting your partner's pants off when you're both lying down is almost impossible. After a few minutes of awkward attempts, I laughed and stood up, pulling Caroline with me. Knowing what we both wanted, I watched as she pulled her dress off the other shoulder and slid it down, exposing a strapless bra and black thong. "You look amazing, incredibly sexy," I said, admiring her curves. Caroline was far from the stereotype of an anorexic model. She was a size 8, with expressive hips and breasts that fit her figure perfectly. Seeing the desire in my eyes, Caroline nervously replied, "I guess you're just saying that, but no one has looked at me so greedily in years." I slowly walked around behind her. Although Caroline didn't have a six-pack, she clearly worked out regularly, and it was especially evident in her buttocks. They were taut like two perfect balls. I couldn't resist and reached out to squeeze one of them, pulling Caroline to me so that our bodies were touching again. "Caroline, are you sure you want to do this?" Joseph intervened again, reminding us of his presence. "I've got this," I whispered in Caroline's ear. "Just sit tight and we'll take the tape off you when we're done," I said firmly. Seeing the seriousness in my eyes, Joseph turned back to the sports news. Caroline had shed her bra and was standing naked, looking both wary and aroused. Taking her hand, I gently led her to the bed, laying her gently on it. Lying down next to her, I began kissing her lips, her neck, her ears. "Patience," I whispered, looking into her eyes as my tongue began to explore her body. After a few minutes, Caroline, having regained her breath, looked up at me and just exhaled. Wow. Getting out of bed, she grabbed her underwear and headed towards the bathroom. "Don't put them back on when you're done," I advised, enjoying the sight of her amazing ass as she walked toward the bathroom door. "Why not?" Caroline came back a few minutes later, naked as I asked. She knelt at the foot of the bed while I lay there. "What's something you've always wanted to try?" I asked. "Something you've never done with Joseph or your first boyfriend?" "Making love standing up, outside of the bed, and having a threesome with two guys," Caroline whispered to me. Holding out my hand to Caroline, I say, "Joseph's not working right now," and help her to her feet. Leaning forward slightly so our lips meet, I run my hands down her exposed spine and ass. The moment she feels the tip of my tongue touch her lips, I straighten up, lifting her up. Caroline wraps her arms around my neck and her legs around my waist as I start to bounce. Caroline laughs. The position is fun, but it's unlikely to help either of us relax. I continue for a few minutes and the sweat starts to flow. My quadriceps are burning. Carrying much less bouncing. 130 pounds is exhausting. "Put me down, you brute. I don't want you to pass out," Caroline says, and I gratefully lower her feet to the floor. Caroline immediately walks over to the window and puts her arms out for support, spreading her legs slightly. With a slight wiggle of her ass, I, needing no further invitation, sneak up behind her. "I'm going to blindfold you," I say to Caroline. It's not a question or a threat, just a soft statement. I take my shirt and wrap it around Caroline's eyes, tying it tight enough to keep it in place. "On your back, on the bed now," I order Caroline before she can start to get cranky. I quickly get something out of my bag and lead her over to my place, deliberately setting her down in the corner. When Caroline's gaze becomes questioning, I ask, "What's something Joseph always wanted to do, but you wouldn't let him?" I knew I was bringing up one of Caroline's fantasies, but not to the point because her husband is unable to fully fulfill it. I wondered where this might lead. "What's that and—" I asked. Caroline started to mumble. "Nothing," and we were both taken aback by Joseph's voice. He was really quiet while we were being intimate, and now she wants to try something new in bed. We both scan the living room, not noticing Joseph, then turn our attention back to each other. I see Caroline's face change, from surprise to worry, then to fear, and finally to curious interest. "We can start slow," I reassure her, trying to calm her nerves. "I have some lube in my bag, but we won't start with that," I assure her. We glance at Joseph again, but he seems to have nothing more to say. I shake my head and go to my bag, grabbing Kai jelly and turning back to Caroline. "Take the middle spot on the bed and lie on your stomach," I instruct her. With a mix of impatience and nervousness on her face, Caroline follows my instructions. As I pour a good amount of lube on my hands to warm it up, Caroline asks, "Will you stop if I tell you to?" "Of course," I reply. This has been an amazing evening, and I don't want to ruin it at the end. Looking down, I notice that her cheeks are clenched as hard as they can be. "Although your ass looks amazing under tension, it'll never work if you don't relax." "Relax," I suggest, as I continue to apply the lube. I keep touching her more and more until she stops clenching completely, as my fingers run right up her ass. "How does that feel?" I ask. "Honestly, I only feel it when you move," Caroline replies. "It feels completely different. I can't tell if it's good or bad yet, just completely different," Caroline admits. "Now I'm going to switch fingers and use my thumb," I announce. Caroline started to tense up, but then relaxed, letting out a quiet but determined sigh. "Okay." I slowly and carefully continued this process with my lubricated thumb until I was sure she had relaxed. I had been preparing for this for at least 10 minutes, and hopefully Caroline had too. "I'm going to go on top," I say to Caroline, climbing onto the bed. "Yeah, okay," I hear her whisper, which seems more addressed to herself than to me. Climbing up, I kiss her shoulder and whisper, "Relax," licking her shoulder blade with my tongue. "Wait, give me a second," Caroline murmured, feeling her body trying not to tense up. A few moments later, she calmed down. "Okay, just a little more." "Is everything okay?" I ask, breathing heavily. Caroline replies, "Yeah, I just wanted to try it." "You're doing great." Caroline giggles slightly and whispers, "You can speed up a little." The new position made Caroline really happy. She slowly opens her eyes and laughs like a teenager. "That was awesome," she says excitedly. I can't help but laugh too. "Let me grab you a towel," I say as I head towards the bathroom. Just as I'm about to leave, I hear her say, "Wait." I turn back to see Caroline sitting up, her body exposed. "That was the best sex I've ever had," she says, sounding a bit sad. "But I'm really tired now and need to sleep. I wish we could spend the night together and have more fun in the morning, but we have to go home." I feel a bit disappointed, even though I knew she was going to leave. The sex was amazing, and I'd love to do it again. "Maybe next time you're in town, we can have a real threesome," I suggest hopefully. Second story. She cheated and I need advice. I'm 20 years old, and I was in a relationship for 4 years. We started dating in high school. When I went to college, we were apart for a couple of months because we were 2 hours away from each other. Then she moved in with me, and we lived together for 2 years. One day she told me she didn't feel happy and independent enough. I asked if this meant we were breaking up, but she wasn't sure. I left for the night, but when I came back, we talked and decided to try to make things work. 2 months later, she said she was moving out. That was about a month ago. Last night, I found out she cheated on me during those 2 months. She never told me about it. I found out from her ex-girlfriend. When I confronted her, she admitted it and blocked me on everything. I know I'm only 20, and it might seem silly to be this heartbroken, but it really hurts. I don't know what to do. It feels like she's trying to hurt me. How do you move past something like this? How do you get over it? She seems fine. She didn't care about me. In fact, before I found out about the cheating, she said, "Don't make me feel bad for being okay." How do I feel like myself again? How do I get through this? Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed our today's story. Don't forget to subscribe.